Want to know which cabins the crew would never book? Ask a cabin steward. They'll tell you in 2 seconds. They hear the complaints all week. Here's the thing. It's almost never the cabin itself. It's what sits above it, below it, or right behind the headboard. And none of that shows on the deck plan you're clicking through. 12 of them. I'll show you exactly what to look for, and the one question that settles it before you pay. Stay with me to the end, a few minutes, and you'll know exactly which cabin to ask for and which one to walk away from. Number 1, directly under the pool deck. Nobody complains about this cabin at booking. They complain at 20 to 6 the first morning. The pool deck is steel, the loungers are aluminum, and every single one of them gets dragged into position before sunrise because the crew have to have that deck ready before the first walker comes up for their laps. It isn't furniture moving up there. It's a metal chair pulled across a metal floor, about 8 feet above your pillow. I had a lady on a Caribbean sailing who worked it out by day 2 and started setting her alarm for 5:30. Her words were, "If I'm going to be awake anyway, I'd rather it be my idea." She was cheerful about it. Most people aren't. Your defense, look at the deck above your cabin on the plan, not just your own. If it shows pool, sun deck, sports court, or jogging track, pick another cabin. Ask for a cabin with staterooms directly above and below you. Magic phrase, can you tell me what's on the deck directly above this cabin? So that one's a morning problem. The next one is a midnight problem. And it was easily the most common complaint I ever took at that desk. Number 2, directly above or below a show lounge. Live music has a floor and a ceiling. The bass goes through both. Theaters and lounges get built as tall open rooms, 2 decks high, which means the cabins immediately above and below are effectively sharing a wall with the sound system. And the show doesn't finish when the show finishes. The band packs down, the crew reset the chairs for tomorrow, and that runs well past midnight. What you actually hear isn't music. It's a low thud with no tune to it. Somehow, that's worse. Music you can hum along to. A thud just sits there. A gentleman in his 70s came down on night 2, very calm, very polite, and said, "I'm not asking you to move me. I'm asking you to tell me when it stops." He'd picked that cabin because it was midship and it was cheap. Both of those were true. Your defense? Find the theater and main lounge on the deck plan. They usually span 2 decks. Rule out every cabin on the deck above and below those rooms. Midship is good advice for motion. Bad advice if the entertainment is midship too. Magic phrase, is this cabin above or below any 2-deck venue? Right. That's noise dealt with. Number 3 takes away the exact thing you paid extra for. Number 3, the aft balcony under the pool deck. Aft-facing balconies are genuinely lovely. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. Sitting over the wake at sunset is one of the best things on a ship. But an aft balcony sitting directly underneath an open pool deck is a different animal, and it gets you twice. First, soot. Ships burn fuel, fuel makes soot, and on certain wind angles, that fine black grit settles on the aft balconies. It also comes off on a white blouse, which people tend to discover the hard way. Second, and this is the one nobody mentions, anything that goes over the railing of the deck above has to land somewhere. If you're the cabin underneath an open pool deck, that somewhere is your balcony. One lady told me she'd paid $400 extra for that view and used the balcony twice in 11 nights. Your defense, aft is fine. Aft directly under an open pool or lounge deck is not. Choose an aft cabin where the deck above you is other cabins, so your balcony is covered. Take a packet of wipes. Even a good aft balcony collects grit on a long sailing. That's what falls on you. Now, what about what blows past you? Number 4, the forward wraparound balcony. Every so often, you spot one of these on the deck plan and think you've found the deal of the decade. Enormous wraparound balcony, right at the front. Priced under a standard balcony 3 decks down. There is a reason for that price. When the ship is moving, the wind coming over the bow crosses that balcony at whatever speed the ship is doing, and it keeps doing it for 8 hours at a stretch. You can't read out there. You can't really sit out there. A guest once told me the wind took the coffee out of her cup before she got it to her mouth, And then she admitted she'd booked the same cabin a second time because she'd convinced herself the first one was a fluke. It was not a fluke. In port, mind you, it's magnificent. Best balcony on the ship. At sea, it's a very expensive window. Your defense? Forward wraparounds work on port-heavy itineraries, not sea day itineraries. If your sailing has 3 or more sea days, book midship or aft instead. Check whether the balcony has a solid windscreen or open railings before you book. Next one's a word problem, specifically the word obstructed, which turns out to mean about 4 different things. Number 5, the obstructed cabin that's also boxed in. Everybody knows obstructed means a lifeboat in the view. Most people take that trade for the money, and honestly, on the right ship, it's a fine deal. I've recommended it plenty of times. What the booking screen doesn't tell you is that there's a second kind of obstruction. Sometimes the cabin next door juts out further than yours does. That leaves you with a solid wall running down one side of your balcony. And a wall doesn't just block the view sideways, it blocks the air. A gentleman described his to me as a hot little box with a nice view, which is about the fairest summary I've ever heard. No cross breeze, full afternoon sun, and a balcony he couldn't use after 11 in the morning. Your defense? Ask what the obstruction is. Lifeboat, tender, steel plate, or a neighbor's wall. Search the cabin number plus photos before you confirm. Guests post pictures of the exact cabin. A solid steel railing instead of glass is often a bonus, privacy, and a bigger balcony. Magic phrase, what exactly is the obstruction on this cabin? Now this next one is my favorite because it's been sitting on every deck plan you've ever looked at. Number 6, the cabin next to white space. Pull up any deck plan. You'll see cabins, corridors, stairwells, and then you'll see blank white patches with no numbers in them at all. Deck plans are honest, in a sneaky sort of way. They just don't label the bad news. That white space is crew territory, pantry, linen store, service lift, room service prep area, and none of it runs on your schedule. A gentleman on a 14-night crossing had the room service galley directly behind his headboard. Pans from 3 in the morning, every morning. His wife woke at every one of them. 2 doors along, surrounded by ordinary cabins, a couple slept through the entire trip and came off saying it was the quietest ship they'd ever sailed. Same corridor, same deck. Your defense. Before you confirm, check what borders your cabin on all 4 sides, including behind the bed. Any unlabeled white block touching your cabin is a crew work area. Move along the corridor. Corner cabins beside a stairwell or service door are the usual offenders. Magic phrase, is this cabin adjacent to any crew or service area on the deck plan? Quick one. Worst cabin you've ever been given? Put the deck number in the comments. All 12 are on a free printable cabin check sheet, linked right below in the description. And by the way, that sheet is 1 page out of something bigger. The Confident Cruiser's Playbook is everything I'd tell you over coffee before you book, and it's $27. Roughly what the ship charges for 2 coffees. The thing I heard most at that desk wasn't a complaint. It was, why did nobody tell me this before I booked? I got tired of hearing it, so I wrote the whole thing down. Links down there if you want it. No pressure either way. Subscribe if this is useful. 6 left, and the last 3 stop being about comfort. Number 7, the balcony above the designated smoking area. Every ship has one outdoor area where smoking is allowed, and it's always on one particular side of one particular deck. Here's the part people get wrong. Smoke doesn't drift sideways to the next deck along. It goes straight up the side of the ship, into the balconies directly above, and it does that most of the day and a fair bit of the night. You won't notice it at the muster drill. You'll notice it the first evening you go out with a cup of tea. One lady had spent months choosing that cabin for the view. She kept the balcony door shut for 6 days. Your defense? Find the designated smoking area on the deck plan. It's marked, and it's usually one side of one deck. Avoid every balcony cabin on the 2 or 3 decks directly above it on that same side. Already booked? Ask at guest services on day 1. A same category move is easiest before the ship settles. Magic phrase, which side and deck is the outdoor smoking area on? This one you agree to without anybody actually asking you. Number 8. The connecting door cabin you didn't ask for. Connecting cabins are brilliant when you booked them on purpose. Grandparents one side, the family the other, door open, everyone happy. They're less brilliant when nobody told you. A connecting door is a door. Doors are not walls. That sounds obvious written down, but it's the thinnest barrier on the whole ship and it does nothing for sound. You'll hear the television. You'll hear the conversation. You'll hear the alarm going off at 6 for somebody else's excursion. And there is genuinely nothing your steward can do about it. I watched a retired couple spend 3 nights next to a family of 5 through a door they hadn't known existed. Their confirmation never mentioned it. It only shows up on the deck plan as a tiny mark between 2 cabin numbers. Your defense. On the deck plan, look for the small connecting door marker between cabin pairs. Tell your booking agent plainly that you don't want a connecting cabin. Already in one? A white noise machine genuinely fixes this. Best £20 you'll spend. Magic phrase, please confirm this cabin has no connecting door. Number 9 isn't really a cabin at all. Number 9, the guarantee cabin. A guarantee booking means you pay for a category and the line assigns your actual cabin whenever it suits them. Sometimes the week you sail. It's a real discount. For a flexible traveler, it can be a genuinely smart buy, and I'd never tell someone not to take one. But look at what you're doing. You're letting a computer choose your bedroom, and that computer has no opinions about your knees, your sleep, or how far you fancy walking at 11 at night. Everything we've just talked about, deck, position, what's overhead, connecting doors, you've handed all of it away for the discount. And the cabins still sitting unassigned late in the game are, by definition, the ones nobody else wanted. 2 friends booked the same sailing last spring. One paid $90 more and chose deck 8 midship. The other took the guarantee and got deck 2 forward under the crew gangway. They're still arguing about it. Your defense, if your sleep, your knees, or your balance matter on this trip, don't take a guarantee. If you do, the small fee to pick your own cabin is the cheapest insurance on the whole booking. Guarantee cabins are also last in the queue if there's a problem, because there's nowhere left to move you. Right. 3 left, and these are the ones I'd actually argue about with somebody. Number 10, the cabin at the far end of the corridor. Modern ships are long, properly long, and the cabin at the very end of a corridor is usually priced a little lower, for reasons the deck plan makes look trivial. On paper, it's a short walk. In practice, it's that walk 5 or 6 times a day. Back for a jacket, back for tablets, back because you left the sunglasses on the bed, and once more at 11 at night when you've already done 14,000 steps. By day 4, you'll know that corridor better than your own street. That's not a compliment. With a stick or on a morning when the hips are having opinions, it becomes the reason people stop going back to the cabin at all. And when the ship's moving, a long corridor is the hardest place on board to stay steady. Nothing to hold but a handrail on one side. One gentleman told me he'd loved his cruise and seen almost none of the ship. Your defense, count the cabins between yours and the nearest lift bank, aim for under 15. Near the lifts is slightly noisier and enormously easier. Take the trade. Have the agent note any mobility needs on the booking, then confirm the walk. Magic phrase, how many cabins is this from the nearest lift bank? 11 has nothing to do with sleep. It's about staying on your feet. Number 11, high and forward. Everyone's heard that the front of the ship moves more. What nobody explains is why that matters more after 65. A ship pivots around its middle, so the further forward you are, and the higher up, the bigger the arc your cabin swings through. Same sea, considerably more movement. For a 30-year-old, that's a queasy hour and a funny story. For someone whose balance isn't quite what it was at 50, it's the difference between walking to breakfast normally and walking to breakfast with one hand on the wall. That's not seasickness. That's an unsteady floor under somebody who already takes stairs carefully. Meanwhile, the couple on deck 5 midship barely notice the same crossing. Your defense, low and midship is the steadiest cabin on any ship. That's physics, not preference. Save the high forward cabins for calm, port-heavy itineraries. Crossing open ocean, Atlantic repositioning, Bay of Biscay, the Tasman, Book low and central, and don't let the view talk you out of it. And the last one, the one that costs you nothing right up until the moment it costs you everything. Number 12, the cabin nowhere near help. Nobody plans a cabin around the day something goes wrong. I understand why. You're booking a holiday, not a contingency. But the medical center sits in one fixed spot on the ship, almost always low down, forward, or midship, and the lifts have never once cared about anybody's timing. If you've had a fall in the last few years, or you're quietly keeping an eye on a spouse's health, the number of decks between your cabin and that one is worth counting. It takes 10 seconds, and here's the part almost nobody knows. Accessible isn't one thing. Carnival alone books 3 different kinds: fully accessible, single-side approach, and ambulatory accessible. And only one of those lets a wheelchair reach both sides of the bed. There's a small fixed number of them on every ship, and the lines want a special needs form on file before they'll hold one for you. Book without it, and they can move you out of it entirely. A family found out on embarkation day that the word on their confirmation didn't mean what they'd assumed it meant. The ship was full. There was nothing anybody could do. Your defense: find the medical center on the deck plan and count the decks to your cabin. File the line's special needs form the day you book, not the week you sail. Ask which of the 3 accessible categories it is in writing. They are not the same cabin. Magic phrase: which accessible category is this? Fully accessible, single-side approach, or ambulatory? Not one of these 12 costs a penny extra to avoid. 4 minutes with a deck plan against 7 nights. So go and look at what's above you tonight, before somebody else books the good one. And if you'd rather spend those 4 minutes getting something back instead of avoiding something, the upgrades cabin stewards hand out to the people who simply ask are right here on the screen. See you on the next one.